Bueno, muy buenas tardes, muchísimas gracias, Ana. Vamos a ir un
Good
poco de
afternoon.
impulso después de esa, como
Thank
decimos,
you, Anna.
presentación
Let's
rápida, un
get a little
pequeño
bit
paso por también las ponencias de esta mañana. Y antes de comenzar, sí
whooshed
que quiero
after this
traspaso
fantastic
esa
lunch, as you
invitar a
said.
que
And
me
before
acompañen
beginning, I would like
las
to
personas que
invite
están con
everyone
nosotros ahora en la mesa para el debate
on
que
board,
nos
our
comentaba Ana, que haremos
panelists.
ahora
Please,
la
if you
introducción.
could
De
come
acuerdo, pues
forward and join
Ondina y
us on
Luis, si
stage.
podéis
Thank you very
ahí
much.
acompañarme, muchísimas gracias.
Please, Ondina,
Bueno, quería
Luis,
empezar
Obianuju.
dando las gracias a todos los que
Thank
habéis
you.
hecho posible, ¿no?
And I wanted to start
Que estemos
thanking
aquí
everyone who
para
made
poder
this
realizar
possible, to make
estas
it possible
ponencias
for
y
us
poder
to be
generar
here and to
este
be able
debate
to
tan necesario,
collaborate
este debate
and create
no
this
solamente
incredible
incumbe
debate
a
and
España,
so
sino
needed.
que es un
And
debate
not
internacional,
only
¿no? Y
for
ahí a todos
Spain,
los
but
participantes
also
que están en
for
esta
the
charla
whole
asistiendo.
international
Igualmente, muchísimas gracias
panelists.
a todos los
And
que nos estáis
thank you very
acompañando,
much
tanto
for
en
all
la
that
sala
we
como a
are
nivel online. Tenéis a
being
través del
able
canal de
to
YouTube, que se está
achieve
también
today together
siguiendo
with you,
y que
with the
luego
ones that are
se
online as well.
puede reproducir
And
para coger pues todas las ideas
we will
que
also
están saliendo. Así que
later
muchísimas gracias y por supuesto felicidades y gracias
enjoy
a CEU por dejarnos sus
maybe
instalaciones y
from
pues
the
la
quality of our
organización
homes. And
de todo este evento.
I'd like to
Bueno,
thank
tenemos
everyone for
comenzamos
participating
ahora, como
once
nos
again.
presentaba Ana,
And
con esta tercera
let's
sesión,
start
Horizonte,
without further
Ciencia,
ado
Técnica
with
y
this
la
third
maternidad
session,
como
Horizon
derecho. En las
Science,
presentaciones de
Technology,
esta
and Maternity as a
mañana
Right.
escuchábamos
And
o
the
veíamos un poco el
presentations
diagnóstico
of
de la
this morning
situación que
told
nos
us a little
presenta,
bit
nos
more about
toca
the
vivir
diagnosis
y el análisis
and the situation
y
that we're
bueno,
living in,
soluciones
and
si
the
es que ese no
analysis that
lo
we
que estamos
had also for the
inmersos.
root causes
Hay
and the
empezar
economic
diciendo que me ha gustado
matters that
asunto
come
el
into
debate de la
place.
maternidad,
I would
el
like
hecho
to
de que se
start
ponga
saying
también
that
encima de la
this
mesa
was very
la
interesting for me.
paternidad, ¿no? Y aquí
And
como
also,
padre
I liked talking
de tres
about
hijos, pues
paternity in
entiendo
a
que
way,
son
because
momentos
I am a
diferentes
father to three
en la vida
children,
de
and
uno.
I
Incluso
think
se
it's one
hablaba
of the
del
best
individualismo, ¿no?
things
Al que
that
está
you have in
llevando
your
o que
life and
quiere
one of
llevar
the
a
happiest
la
moments
sociedad y
in my
el
life.
poder
And
viajar y poder
in some
tener el
cases, we
tiempo
focus
como
a
poder
lot
viajar
more
como viajar con hijos. Yo
into
sin hijos,
maternity,
de hecho,
and
viajar con la
paternity is
familia, viajar
as
con los hijos,
important.
es una fase
And
y una felicidad todavía mucho mayor
it's
que
lovely to
viajar y hacer
live with
viajes
your
solos, ¿no? O sea
children and
que
to be able to
hablaremos también
travel
de ello
around the world
en
with
esta
them instead of
sesión.
doing it alone. So children are not an
Dicho lo
impediment; they
cual,
are something to celebrate.
en esta
And
mesa pues,
having said
vamos a
so,
tratar el tema de la
um,
ciencia, de
in
la
this
tecnología, cómo
roundtable, we will
está
talk
avanzando y
about
ya se ha oído
science, about
antes
technology, and about
algunos
how
temas
it is
relacionados con el
evolving,
debate de alquiler,
and
de pasar los deseos a
how things
derechos
have been
y temas como pues que dónde está el límite, ¿no? Y
important
aquí
in
bueno, pues
that
queremos hablar un
sense,
poco
and
también
where are the
del
limits,
futuro,
right?
de
And
dónde
we
están
want to talk
esos
about the
límites, lo que
future. We
podemos
want to
hacer
talk
para apoyar
about
a la
where are
maternidad,
those
hasta dónde
limits, what can
puede
we do to
llegar
support
la
maternity,
técnica. Y
how
esta
can we
mañana
help everyone through
pues
technology,
ha
through
habido
science as
distintas
well.
presentaciones, ¿no?
And
Expresando,
this
presentando
morning we had lots of presentations,
una realidad, bueno, pues que a veces
and
pues nos puede
some of
parecer
them presented that reality
complicada,
that
¿no? Pero
sometimes
yo
might
creo que
seem
el
a little bit
futuro
complex and a little bit far away from us.
va a ser muy
But
positivo.
in
Confío plenamente en que
the
en que la
future, I can see
reconciliación se
hope, I
acabará
can see
imponiendo,
positiveness,
que
I
las
can see
cosas
that
buenas como es
the
la
truth
maternidad,
will
como la
impose
defensa de la vida,
itself.
como la
I can
defensa de
see
la
the good
familia, la
things
institución
of
de la
maternity taking
familia
over,
que acoge, que
and
protege, pues al final se
family being an
acabarán
example for
imponiendo, ¿no? Y se
caring
hablaba de los jóvenes, miro aquí a
and
Margarita,
for
miro a
accepting.
Gary, que hablaban
And we talked
esta
about
mañana de ese cambio
youngsters.
que se está
I look at
produciendo y
Margarita,
que
Gary,
yo
that
creo
talked about our
que es así,
youngsters
¿no?
and
Que los
how
jóvenes
that
están viendo
movement
que lo que
is
se les ha
happening,
vendido
how our
hasta ahora, lo que
youngsters are
se
also
pretende
becoming
en
more
teoría
conscious
dar
and
la
aware
felicidad solvente,
of
pues
how
al final
important
pues se
family
vuelve
is and
vacío y que
how
necesitan
important it is to
algo más, que
be
necesitan esa
still
familia, que necesitan
part
ese
of a
amor y
family
que la
and be
Madre Teresa
happy.
de Calcuta,
And
que no quieres cambiar el
not
mundo,
only
ve a
that,
casa
but
y ama a
also
tu familia y creo que es lo que tenemos
if you
que
want to
hacer y creo
change
que al
the
final
world, you
va a
have to
ser
go first to
bueno,
your
pues lo que
family
va a
and
venir.
start
Puede
for
ser que
them.
sea a
And
corto plazo, como decía
this is
benigno, ese cambio de la sociedad,
probably
pero
not
estoy seguro
happening
que en el
in
futuro todos
short
estos
term
valores
or
que defendemos, estas propuestas
very near in the
que
future,
aceptamos, ¿no?
but I
Como
know
la
that
familia,
those
de la
values
la
we
libertad,
are focusing
de
on and that we are
de la
trying to
vida,
foster
acabarán
and harness
imponiéndose. Y hay
are
una
those
parte
that will
importante que es
impose
la
themselves
parte también de
at the
ciencia y
end.
tecnología,
And
¿no? O sea,
there's
dónde
also a
vamos,
part of
la
science and
compraventa de
technology, as
seres
I
humanos con
said,
el tema de los
and
derechos de
we
alquiler,
want
dónde
to
está
talk
la
a little bit
dignidad
more about
de la
surrogation. We
persona.
want to talk about
Y para
more
eso tenemos
about
a tres personas que voy a empezar
people and
presentándolas,
their
que son
rights.
referentes
And we have
en
two
su ámbito y
persons
que
here
estoy
who are
seguro y
very
convencido que nos van
important for this matter, and I am very convinced that they will bring a very interesting point of view. First of all, I will introduce them a little bit for you. First, I will begin with Obianuju Ekeocha. Thank you very much for being here with us. We met yesterday in Frankfurt at the airport, and we came together. After all, it's a small world. And Obianuju Ekeocha is a conference expert as well as an activist. She comes from Nigeria, and she comes from the UK as well, and has written Neocolonialism in the 21st Century. That book is one of the most important of hers. And she's also a founder and president of Culture of Life Africa, where she also carries out an incredible labor of care in forums as well as the United Nations and the European Union, and has also participated in different political debates and acted as counselor for different governments in Africa and Europe. And her defense has also been heard in the White House and in Washington. Also, Ekeocha defends a neocolonialism, an ideological neocolonialism, saying that it presents a continent where women would be always oppressed and where contraception is used as a tool for freedom, which obviously is just wrong. And Obianuju will be talking a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And now I turn to Ondina. Thank you very much for being here with us. You are a professor of biology and genetics in Universidad CEU San Pablo in our university, and you also work at the Torrelodones Center Healthcare Center, as well as started working for our university in 2003. You are also focusing on behavioral conduct and the family planning in the aspect of bioethics. She is also a member of the First Care Center in Madrid and president of the Bioethics Center for Madrid. And her main line of action is the sexual and effective health, and she has also participated in campaigns for the prevention in this sense, for avoiding abortion and helping women in that situation. And she has also been present in many healthcare centers all around Spain, trying to develop this message. Thank you. And last but not least, we have Luis Chiva. Thank you very much for being here with us. And he's the director of the Department of Gynecology and Obstetrics in the Clinical University of Navarra in Madrid. He is a doctor by the University of Madrid, and he carried out his internship in La Paz in the hospital in Madrid and specialized in gynecology in the Jesus Presbyterian, working as well as a gynecologist in Gregorio Marañón between the 95 and 2002. And during 14 years, he has been the curator and director of the Gynecology and Obstetrics Center Anderson in Madrid, where he has also been responsible for the surgery specialization in this center. He's also the director of Gynecology and Obstetrics in this clinical Universidad de Navarra in Madrid, as we said, and he has also participated in many uncountable essays in this sense. He's also the founder of the journal Oncological Gynecology and has published several articles in diverse journals, international and national, of scope. Thank you very much for being here. He's a real expert in the matter, and it's just wonderful to have you here as well as part of this panel. Thank you for being here, all of you, to be able to talk about the present and the future as well, and how we can help make it better for all those mothers and mothers-to-be through ethics, through science, and through our humanistic values. And without further ado, Obianuju, if you may. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Muy buenas tardes. Es un honor estar aquí con ustedes.
It is a real honor for me to be here with you. Thank you very much.
It is a great pleasure to be able to present at this forum. Now, I have my speech written. I noticed that most people spoke, which is always better, their speech, but my mother always complains that I speak too fast. So for the translation, I have it written, and I will try to stick to this because I sent it to the translator already, okay? Thank you, Javier. Javier, I met him yesterday at the Frankfurt yesterday. But before that, we were together 11 years ago at an international event in Italy at Frascati, and we took a nice picture. So he was very surprised I still had this picture in my camera. So I showed it to him, and we were so young, 11 years ago. But it is a pleasure because the things we were speaking about 11 years ago, we are still here 11 years later speaking about the same kinds of issues, fighting the same fight. So even last night when I went back, when I went to my room after we had gotten back, and I was thinking about it and thinking, God, isn't it amazing that we have been fighting many years for society to hear what we are saying? And by the grace of God, we will keep talking about these issues until we are heard. So I am originally from Nigeria. I live in the United Kingdom and work as a scientist in the United Kingdom. But I moved to Europe 20 years ago, in 2006, March of 2006. And when I moved to Europe, one of the adjustments that I had to make after moving from Africa to Europe was really adapting to the strongly individualistic worldview, which is clearly reflected and reinforced through language, whether it is the English language, the French language, the Spanish language. As an African, I found that no matter who is speaking, as long as it's around the West, the worldview is present even in language. So this, adjustment I had to make was how people had this very strong emphasis on personal rights, on individual choice, on autonomy, which was deeply embedded in everyday language. In fact, it was in Europe that I first encountered the language of bodily autonomy framed as an individual's right to choose, which was a formulation as an African, a right to choose. What is that? For me, it was such a euphemistic implication, and it took me some time, and English is a second language, but as you can see, I am not struggling. I speak English well, but I didn't know what it meant, the right to choose. That euphemism, I couldn't really understand it for a while. It was also in Europe that I first encountered someone in a professional setting who is single, well-to-do, comfortable, who talked about their entitlement to a child. Even somebody who doesn't have a husband or who doesn't have a wife, a man can come out and say, I feel entitled to a child. And a woman who doesn't have a husband could say, I really feel entitled to a child. I think it was Professor Maria Calvo in the morning panel who spoke about the idea that people can now have children like the Greek gods and goddesses. Doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman, Hera, Artemis, Athena. They have, they could have children without the complementarity between male and female. It was in Europe that I really encountered this. The fact that somebody says, well, I want to have a child, and I feel I have a right to a child. It's not just now empty talk. Because in an age of unprecedented technological advancements as we are in, this expressed desire is no longer merely articulated, but in fact it can be operationalized. Because babies now can be designed, and you're going to hear that from the excellent panelists here. Babies now can be designed, can be engineered, can be manufactured and delivered to paying recipients. And advances in assisted reproductive technologies have completely reshaped not only medical practice, but also social and ethical understanding of reproduction. So if I see a child now, it is possible that child does not have a mother. It is possible that that child maybe doesn't have a father in the picture. It is possible that that child, if we're in Europe, could have two mothers or two fathers. So assisted reproductive technology has completely changed how we see motherhood and parenting. So I'll give you a small example. In 2018, and I hate to bring her into this, Kim Kardashian, the reality show personality, had made an announcement to all of us who were on social media when she had her third baby. Well, I say she had her third baby. See my use of language. But she wrote, "She's here. She's here. Kanye and I are happy to announce the arrival of our healthy, beautiful baby girl. We are incredibly grateful to our surrogate who made our dreams come true." Whoa. So she was not pregnant, but the baby is here. Reports indicated that the surrogate who carried this child had over $100,000 paid to her for carrying this baby. And in 2019, the following year, they went back on this loop that, it was another professor who spoke about this loop of consumerism. In 2018, she had a baby. It was easy to have. So in 2019, she had another baby through the same means. This is the case not only with celebrities. I talk about this and it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek because it's Kim Kardashian, but that's a long time ago. These days, everyday people, our cousins, our relatives, our brothers and sisters, people we know, our colleagues, are having babies through surrogacy. Now, it's not just the fact that celebrities are doing it, because there is an entire industry that now not only caters to the stars and the celebrities, they've brought it down for everyday consumers. Through agencies, through clinics, through legal intermediaries, surrogacy and other assisted reproductive services are organized and delivered within a global market context. This is indeed the age of a market-driven medical technology industry, which, as Kim Kardashian said, makes dreams come true. I do not wish to diminish the many and varied reasons that lead women and even men to seek assisted reproductive technologies. I recognize that motivations differ for all kinds of reasons, from affluent celebrities aiming to have this picture-perfect family to couples who are genuinely confronting infertility. I know that. So as a woman, I also understand what a lot of people have talked about on different panels today. I understand and acknowledge this embodied longing, this longing within us and desire for a child. Yet my African upbringing situates this desire within a broader moral and cultural framework in which a child is seen as a gift, as a blessing, as a mystery, rather than a product of human will. In fact, I would like to suggest that this perspective goes beyond just the African worldview. It's not just the Africans who think that a child is a gift. In fact, many people have talked about it as a gift. Yes, in my culture, it's a very conscious. In my tribe, the Igbo tribe, we have this name, Onyinyechi, which is normally a girl's name. I have a cousin, her name is Onyinyechi, literally means God's gift. So that child, that entire human being is a gift. But it goes beyond the African worldview.
because this I believe that this is a universal thing. If we are truthful, it really should be a universal understanding and a universal view. As an American bioethicist, Leon Cass argues that modern reproductive technologies risk shifting human procreation from the relational act of begetting to the technical act, from making to actually, from begetting to making. So he says something that is actually in the creed, if you're a Catholic: begotten, not made. Begotten, not made. That a child should be conceived and not actually created. A child is not an order that you can go online and make or go into a catalog and pick. But a child should be something, a gift that actually comes from this relational complementarity between male and female. Cass actually makes a very profound distinction and a very important point there. What I aim to address here is not really a medical or even a legal argument, but a cultural one. An examination of how language in Western society, or any society that, for that matter, is wielded. I want to highlight the remarkable and perhaps troubling power of language, which, when this language is combined with desire, and the desire is combined with financial resources and limitless technology, we can actually bring a human being into existence, and how these forces can actually reshape motherhood. Motherhood, that maternidad, we've been talking about it since morning. What becomes of motherhood in a culture where children can, in principle, be created and conferred through virtually limitless technology, technology without borders, technology without boundary? What is even the point of fatherhood? People have asked the question today, what about fatherhood? What happens with the fathers? Thank you. What becomes of fatherhood? What is the point of fatherhood? Are mothers and fathers even necessary? Or do children only need parent one and parent two? I return here to my foundational Igbo African worldview, which emphasizes communal and relational understandings of life. In many African traditions, a child is not something one makes, but a gift that life gives. Children are received as blessings, whose character and destiny unfold beyond the full control of parents. To say a child is begotten, not made, is to acknowledge, in fact, that no parent actually owns a child's life or future. And those of you who are parents know that you have no control over what happens in your child's destiny. It's not in your hands, because this child has been entrusted to you. This understanding calls for humility, calls for patience, it calls for communal care. For the child belongs not only to the parent, but to life itself and to the community that surrounds the child. When I was growing up in Nigeria, I had my mom and I had my dad. But I also had my aunties and I had my uncles. At the time, it was not fun, because time I do anything, they will phone my parents and say, why is Obianuju here? So it's a communal kind of life that I think that Europe has completely lost. If you saw your neighbor's child somewhere in the middle of the night, can you phone the parents to say, I saw your child outside the club. I was coming from the airport in the taxi last night. It was midnight, literally midnight. And I saw some people outside of the club. It was raining, it was cold, it was a very low temperature. And I saw these girls in their mini skirts and I thought, oh my gosh, where are their parents? Is it safe for them? Are they okay? Are they gonna be okay? This is the kind of thinking that we are taught in Africa. It's not just my life and my choice. And the fact that if I saw a young girl who I feel is vulnerable, can I pick up my phone and call the parents? Of course, in England, I can't do that because they would say it's not my business, right? But this is an unfortunate situation, and it's something unfortunate which I think that Europe has lost, and I think America has lost. Most of the Western world has lost it, and Africa is about to lose it as well if care is not taken. This is not to romanticize or idealize African perspective, though. There are real injustices. There are profound sufferings. There are, in fact, intense pressure on women who are struggling with infertility. I speak from a very personal experience, having witnessed many of my close relatives, many of my close friends, who are navigating this very difficult journey of infertility. Yet, having lived in both African and European context, I can attest to the deep anthropological insight about life, about human limits, and relationality that my African worldview provides. From this perspective, technology, no matter how advanced, requires guidance of wisdom and technical boundaries to ensure that human dignity is preserved. We should not have technology without boundaries. So today, we live in an age where assisted reproductive technologies have fundamentally shifted how we understand the creation of life. What was once miraculous, what was once relational, the act of begetting a child in many contexts has become more a technical one. Through technology, we can now determine genetic traits. We can control timing. We can select the circumstances of a child's conception, and while these capabilities may fulfill deep desires, they also raise profound cultural and ethical questions. Let us turn to surrogacy, to a practice that has grown dramatically in recent decades. At first glance, it might seem like a remarkable solution of human desire, but it fragments motherhood in ways that we rarely stop to consider. It fragments motherhood into three parts: genetic, gestational, social motherhood. So we can now see that one woman provides the genes, another one carries the child, and possibly another one raises the child. What was once relational and holistic way of life has now become a set of functions. Women are now divided into body parts. From, again, African ethical perspective, this is deeply troubling because the body is not a collection, just a collection of bodily parts and functions to be outsourced. Motherhood should be embodied, it should be relational, and it's intricately tied to responsibility. And there's also a global dimension to this practice of surrogacy, because too often the women who gestate these children are poor, they're vulnerable, because those are the ones that will agree to give their bodies to these kinds of services, to carrying the dreams and desires of wealthier individuals. Sometimes it's even across continents. These women bear intense and immense physical and emotional labor, while real benefits, the social, emotional, and psychological benefits, will accrue elsewhere. It is often argued that they are compensated, they're paid for this gestational work. But such payment may offer a measure of financial empowerment, but yet the structure of the arrangement remains deeply susceptible to the exploitation of those in precarious circumstances. So surrogacy in this form is not just medical or technical process. It is a practice that has become entangled with global inequalities and structural injustice. Let us be clear, when gestation and caregiving is completely fragmented, the person who bears the most risk is the one who is vulnerable, the one who is poor. Now, in conclusion, I'll say this. While we have confronted the troubling, or we continue confronting the troubling realities of commodified and fragmented motherhood, there are alternatives. There are always alternatives because, yes, everybody knows, yes, most of us at this particular setting, people will know what we think about surrogacy. But then another person will say, so what do you want people to do? Genuinely. There are people who are struggling. There are people who want children, but they cannot. There are people that find themselves in circumstances where they cannot. But there is always solutions and alternatives. There's ethical adoption. There's foster care. There's long-term accompaniment of children. There are all these programs. We have a lot of them in Africa, but I think even in Europe, we need programs where people can, even from afar, they can help to support families, or they can advocate for children, or they can, guardianship. There are all these options. Likewise, there are medical approaches to dealing with infertility that are ethical, that will not replace the human act and will not replace, this complementarity and co-responsibility of male and female. Without fragmenting motherhood, they can actually begin to surmount these problems. Technology should actually support and not supplant the relational, embodied experience of bringing a child into the world. I think what we need, actually, and most of you will agree, is a cultural renewal. Is it wherever, whether it's in Africa or Europe, we now need one culture. It's not just the African culture, the European culture. I think we need a cultural renewal, one that values and celebrates motherhood, not only through biology, but through social, emotional, and communal engagement. African traditions offer important guidance here as they encourage extended family involvement. I know Lucy had talked about it and how difficult things are now becoming. But we are so lucky, at least for now, we still have mothers and in the house. Sometimes we have a mother and children, but sometimes we have a grandmother, even grandfather, with their children and their grandchildren. My mother lives in a house with my sister, and my sister, every week, she has her daughter bring his son. So my mom is living in 4 generations with child, grandchild, great-grandchild, and I think that is the way life should work, where it's multi-generational support. And we should nurture motherhood and give women the psychological support that they need to be able to live out this beautiful vocation, So the message is simple. Motherhood can be lived in many truthful ways without turning children into products. By embracing these principles, we honor life and dignity and shared responsibility of our humanity. I think I'm going to just kind of round up here by saying it is wonderful. It's always good for me to participate in this kind of international forum, because it shows that it's not just one view, that all of us have a shared view and a shared target or a shared goal, is to find this life where we are all able to live out our lives in dignity, and people are appreciating that which is most important, which is family, which is motherhood, which is fatherhood, and the fact that the entire society supports this kind of human dignity. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We met 11 years ago in Italy, but you look the same. I look 20 years older. Bueno, continuamos. Hacemos como en las otras mesas, hacemos las presentaciones y después.
All right, we move on with the other speakers, and we will hear from the other presentation, and that will be followed by a Q&A. Now, Ondina, floor is yours.
Bueno, Ondina y Luis tenéis una presentación, creo, ¿no?
A mí la verdad es que pues no puedo empezar esta presentación sin hablar de mi familia.
I can't but starting this presentation without discussing my family and bonds. I have bonds with very many people present here. Actually, when we read the bio of all of us, well, we don't say the most important elements. And what I've done in my life is not everything that has been said here, but on what I mean is becoming a mother of 9 children. Everything that I did as a professional, it was just to raise my children and to take care of my children. Sometimes when I was on duty, I remember to work in night shifts, And I remember a colleague saying that I've never discussed my family so much since you are here. And actually, we try to hide the family. The family is not discussed. It seems like you are discussing or talking about your children, you are hurting someone who doesn't have any children. But, well, on the other hand, we hear about things which are very intimate, which are none of your business, and we are not interested in. And well, actually, we should not forget about the community. And family is a community. That's why we need to discuss families with each other. At this international seminar about motherhood in crisis, when I was invited, first I was very pleased to be invited, and I thought how to approach the topic. And actually, I can remember one of my teachers, and I followed training, that UN training that was given by her. And actually, I'm bringing this book with me, which is already an antiquity. Maria Dolores Viracolo, in her introduction, mentions that she was an advocate for all the techniques of assisted reproduction because her son-in-law had been one of the pioneers in Spain in public health care. Dr. Portondo was his name, in the introduction of assisted reproduction techniques. And actually, his death had been very dramatic. He died in a helicopter accident. And after that, she did research, and she used to admire a doctor a lot because he had made assisted reproduction technique available to those who could not have children. She admired him, and well, she also talked about the number of children that they didn't know their parents, their fathers. They were biological orphans. And she wrote this book many years ago and many years later that. And actually, when it comes to assisted reproduction, we are increasingly aware of children that have been born thanks to assisted reproduction techniques. And actually, I am more and more prudent when it comes to discussing those techniques. I understand that the parents that resorted to that, they did it because they wanted to become parents. And the same as the doctors that are engaged in the process. This is a very complex issue that needs to be treated with care, so that no one takes offense. But actually, now it is also time to go deeper into it. I'm bringing with me this graph where we see the number of embryo and frozen eggs is increasing in an exaggerated manner due to the existing regulations, existing laws, and the oblivion. Some of those embryos are left in the oblivion. I have friends that they have frozen embryos, and sometimes when they remember that, they feel pangs of conscience, but at the same time, they don't know how to manage that situation. That added to the number of 100,000 abortions per year. So when we talk about motherhood in crisis, fatherhood in crisis, we said that we are missing out people, but people who are there and who have never been born. And when I was preparing this presentation, this case came up, a case that is very interesting because everything underlying it. This is the oldest embryo that was born this year. It had been frozen for 30 years. Well, the Lindsay and Tim are the names of the parents, adopted an embryo whose mother had engendered it for many years, and the mother had been paying for that embryo because she was aware that she had a number of embryos conceived, but they had not been implanted in her womb. And she was aware that those embryos were their children, that was a material not to be discarded off, and that they were frozen. This is a program existing in the US. You continue paying, and if someone adopts your embryo, your children, you will get to meet the parents. The situation, which is terrible than any soap opera we can think of, because everything is being told to you like a sentimental story, and actually it is terrible. So this lady that had that bank of conscience, that had spent lots of money to keep the child frozen, now he can see the child who has just been born, had been frozen for 30 years, and the children of the same age are, the brothers and sisters are 30 years older than the newborn. I understand that when the embryos were created, actually sustaining those embryos was not very expensive. And now it is. Now we have the biological mother of the child around. So it is actually strange. At least it is strange. This is an image of these big freezing machines where we have nearly 1 million embryos, frozen embryos. And that is an increasing number. So nowadays we are talking about scientific evidence. Scientific evidence, everything needs to be supported by scientific evidence. But when at the end of the day you see that people stop smoking cigarettes and they start vaping, well, no one says that that is terrible. And actually, there is no scientific evidence for that. But when it comes to frozen embryos, it has been taken for granted that there would be no harm, no damage, no problem whatsoever. And actually, there is an increasing number of papers studying the consequences. First of all, in terms of cancer, well, those are one of the big secrets that are never told, that are never disclosed. When I did my residency, that was back in early 2000, it was already mentioned that there were registers of cancer of children that were born through in vitro fertilization. This is a study with a large cohort in Northern Europe countries where the cumulative risk of cancer in children born through spontaneous conception was in blue, it shows in blue, and here we have the other line with the children that were born out of assisted reproduction techniques. This is a relationship between reproductive technology and the risk of autism spectrum disorders. Nowadays, there are many children with autism that were born out of assisted reproduction techniques. This is another book that I'm bringing with me that I invite you to read it. It has been written by a philosopher, Doctor in Philosophy, Francisco Well, and he is the lead researcher of research projects on assisted reproduction. The book is very easy to read, and it is a book about all the information and the topics that I'm discussing with you here, but it is populated with data. So if anyone wants to become a parent through assisted reproduction technology, should read this book. Those are data which are never disclosed because of the big business behind them. And it's actually behind all this business of assisted reproduction technology, there are millions of euros behind it. So this is a scientific device or a technological drift, or actually it is deepening the problem of infertility. Infertility is a really, really painful question. We all know friends or have brothers and sisters who have gone through that. However, nowadays there is a panic to have infertility, but at the same time, well, some women who do not even think about being mothers, they panic about being infertile. So we have women having children at a later age, but actually well, children nowadays are very healthy, but actually, when children decide to have children late, of course, it is harder to have children because of nature. And actually, when assisted reproduction technology started, well, the situation has gotten worse, but actually there are lobbies out there. And there are some people who want to be parents at the age of 60. Actually, I had a patient, she was Petra, on a low income situation, and she was very much afraid of being pregnant. And I said, don't you worry, you're 60, don't you worry about getting pregnant. She was very worried. She didn't want to get pregnant, and she was 80 years old. So here we see how the birth rate is lower for the reasons that we just mentioned, that is to say, late pregnancies. And actually, we are shifting from mothers who do not want to become, or women who do not want to become mothers at all. So this is the first time that I saw it on the preamble of AIRO law, which is law on sexual reproduction law. It was a law for sexual and reproductive rights. It was a law that was needed at all in Spain, and actually it was wanted to show people how to be a man or woman. And in the preamble, this is discussed. Actually, radical feminism rejected maternity as servitude of the species. Well, because it seems that, well, perhaps that's the reason why mothers do not mention the number of children that they have. Maternity is seen as a burden. Well, women want to be mothers, but what is the way or how they want to become mothers? The law says that women can become mothers, and we can exercise our rights to motherhood, whether it is to have an abortion or to adopt a child or to have a child naturally or through assisted reproduction technology. This underlying idea is around the way reproductive assisted techniques are being used today, which is a way of the virtualizing how those techniques were proposed in the first place, but which is no longer the case. I'm bringing this piece of art with me. Well, when you are at your consultation, you always come up with interesting situations. On a very same morning, I saw two types of women. A 90-year-old lady who was aware of or concerned about how to preserve her eggs. She wanted to go into cryopreservation because she was sure that she would be infertile. Then a lady, 29 years old, that she was consulting about sexually transmitted diseases. And actually, she wanted to. So now she was sure that actually she had not been infected with any sexually transmitted disease, and her main horror was to become a mother. And then a 36-year-old lady who wanted to be a mother, she wanted to have perfect health values before becoming a mother. And I said, well, your analysis results are perfect. Do not wait any longer. Are these women free? One has anxiety. She thinks she's infertile. The other one doesn't dare to be a mother. The other one doesn't want to be a mother at all. Aquilino Polaino, she was a professor here at this university, tells us how we manage chaos if we can. Actually, we are living in a very chaotic situation. Here, this is a graph that shows us the increasing number of women who become mothers after 50 years of age. And it is appealing to see the number of mothers of the age of 40 and 45 years of age instead of 39. We should not forget that as of the age of 35, fertility drops down. Assisted reproduction techniques are playing an increasing role for those women who are above 35, 45, or 50 years old. Nearly 20% of the children nowadays are born out of these reproductive assisted techniques. Time left? I just don't want to be late. Spanish legislation. Well, there is also health holidays. We see many people taking health holidays here in Spain. But here, our assisted reproduction law is very permissive. The origin countries of patients coming here for assisted reproduction techniques are the following, and here we have high numbers of them. So Spain is a country where accessing to those techniques is as easy as going to IKEA to buy a new kitchen. What is the type of people that access to these techniques? Well, women who are alone, homosexual couples, couples with infertility, and these are some takeaway messages. This is a very interesting quote. One of the biggest triumphs of humanity and one of the most tangible liberations of our species, if we could elevate the procreation to the range of intentional action, while satisfying a natural need, instead of considering that sexuality is wonderful. So communion of a man and a woman, that is beauty. Actually, Freud says that actual sexuality is rejected with so much planning. So it is considered that a very planned pregnancy is more human, but actually it is not the case. I am a twin, and my parents didn't expect twins. Children are coming here because parents long for children and they organize everything to have children. So ROPA method. ROPA method, it is a more of a specialized method to mothers decide to become mothers, but both want to feel pregnancy. It is all about experiences and sharing that. And what is the benefit for the child? Is there any benefit for the child? It all starts from that shared desire. I am bringing this with me. I'm sure that some of you are aware of this man. Today, bioethics is a complex word. I teach the Masters of Bioethics, and it's interesting to see the profile of students. There came a time that we had the members of parliaments and councillors of Podemos political party. They were taking a master's course on bioethics. It is very important those who receive training on bioethics. All the health centers should have a bioethical committee. That's where I belong to, and that's where we want to have a representation of different ways of thinking. Saul Scott is a professor of bioethics at Oxford University. He's Australian, and what he says sometimes is just very crazy. And his discourse is well set up, and actually he is at Oxford University. But he talks about the procreative beneficence. And actually, he says that we parents have the moral duty for our children to be healthy. So, you are not a hero if you have a child and you know that he's sick. We have the moral duty to have healthy children. It is not about preparing the best condition for our children to be born, but he talks about a moral duty to have healthy children. And to finish off, I would like to share with you the thinking of two philosophers, Michel Gaucher, a very interesting philosopher. I recommend his readings. It is about the son of desire. He talks about assisted reproduction techniques, and they have gone deeper into the son of desire. So, of course, you cannot really dream with your face of your child. But it seems that nowadays everyone can desire a child, to go after the perfect child. People look for the most intelligent child. That son of desire, that generates a social crisis around that child who is overprotected, who was so much looked after. So therefore, it does not come from the natural love of two parents. They are just desire a son. The son as a desire. The future takes the shape of a son. And it is not the family who makes the son, but it is the desire of the child that builds up the family. And Spemann, drawing on in vitro fertility, he's got a very interesting thinking. It is about the start of the life of men. It's a secret origin, secret start. No one knows where we were conceived. That's a secret moment, a moment that belongs to God. It was the finger of God who was there, who thought of you, who loved you, and goes beyond whatever parents do. So that origin love, that loved us earlier and more than our parents. So that is an element that does not impact only children that were born after in vitro fertilization, but it is, at the end of the day, is an obsession for children to be perfect. And actually, we should not even try to have perfect and children, otherwise we will suffocate them. Whereas nowadays we have those children that have been, who is nowadays born and accompanied by 4 adults. And to finish off, the importance of recovering human sexuality and procreation of a family, the role of men and women, and the union of men and women. I teach human sexuality, 4th year of psychology. It's a beautiful subject. And it is very beautiful when we talk about sexuality. We see all the different elements that are kind of demolished, and where students ask many questions and interesting conversations between men and women take place as they see that understand a true way of going through human sexuality and experiencing human sexuality. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Ondina, for your wonderful presentation. We could be listening to you for hours and hours on end. We are a bit behind the schedule, so we started a bit 10 minutes late, okay, and I think we could finish 10 minutes late as well. Everyone is very much engaged. Now I would like to give the floor to Chiva. When Luis Peral invited me to take part at the seminar, I couldn't say no for very many reasons. For the anthropological fight we've been fighting to create and build a better society. I am a gynecologist. I am the son of a gynecologist. My father is here with me today. He is 94 years old. He's accompanying me today. He's an incredible man, my source of inspiration. And I would like to share with you the following perspective. I would like to start off with this provoking slide. No one ever in history we had so much reproductive technology and so very few children. The birth rate is very, very low, 1.1 children per woman, perhaps the lowest birth rate in the world, one of the highest were the replacement index. So replacement index to keep up a stable society and the right demographic pyramid is 2.1. But in Spain, we are ranking lower than Korea and other countries. We are in a very complex situation. We have more mothers over 40 years old versus 25 years old. And now, where we do have the arrival of a very incredible figure, double income, no kids. Perhaps the 15% is not appropriate because here we include everyone who doesn't have any children. But let us make it a 10%. 10% of DIN, double income, no kids couples. So this is not only a biological problem, but it is also a cultural problem. This morning we have heard about how the search for the first child has changed. So in men that stands at 35 years of age, women at 33 years old. The maximum fertility in women is at 26, a big drop at 35 and a huge drop at the age of 40. Later on I will tell you the reasons why. Since the year 1975 up until now, the age of mothers have been increasing, and we should wonder why.
And at the same time, back in 58, when we had the first registers for natality and births, we see here how in red we have the mothers that have come to be in Spain as part of the births that existed in the 19th century, where we had a mortality of 50% in children, of course. But yes, we only had 15 million inhabitants. So that tells us something. And in that sense, it means that fertility has descended, even if the life expectancy of women and men has been rising and rising up till 85 years old. And in our country in particular, we are really, really reaching numbers that are absolutely doomed. In comparison to other countries in the world, we are lower than Italy, than Korea, than Japan. And this put into context of the European Union, for example, we are under scoring in every single aspect. And I am responsible for the department of the gynecology department in Navarra at the Clinic. And I'm also a professor for ethics. I teach students in their third, their fourth, their fifth year of medicine. And in this amazing country, I always ask myself, with this beautiful sun that always shines and this beautiful humor that we have, so much beauty around us, we have the lowest fertility rate in Europe. I don't understand. And this is a question that I open for everyone to answer and to think of, because sometimes we have an anonymous answer and sometimes we think maybe we start very late because we have been programmed to start late, trying to become a mother or a father. Some others live in the uncertainty of not becoming the owners of our houses or our home, or not having a good enough job. And we do have the certainty that we will be able to get pregnant whenever we want. We have that confidence, that trust put into medicine, into technology. And in purple, we have here the crisis that we have in terms of hope. Have we lost the feeling of being and becoming a parent or a mother, being worthy? And I can't answer those questions because we have so little time, but I am absolutely terrified because the age when women become pregnant here is the biggest and most important cause of infertility in our country. And this brings lots of consequences because it makes it different and difficult to become a mother. But not only that, also the women who are different to men in this sense, they have the meiosis, the division that we have for becoming a mother, they have it frozen. That cell is frozen. And in men, in 3 months, all of our sperm has changed already. But in women, that step is frozen until they ovulate. And when we reach 40, we become, by design, we become defective in that sense, because we are designed to become parents earlier, especially women. And that comes with difficulties in terms of abortion, in terms of problems with the kids and all the difficulties. And we are living in a society that has sold to us that we can create a career and get other kind of life achievements, and then we can become a mother because we have time. We have these adverts and these campaigns all over in Madrid, for example, in our buses. We see those ads saying that we can become a mother whenever we want. And we are turning maternity into a thing that we can buy. I have 2 specialties in gynecology. One is oncology and the other one is fertility. I have been working in New York as well for a long time in these aspects and in these fields. And there are 3 ideas that have permeated our society very easily. First of all, the right to have a kid, as it was said already. It's an acquired right, because I am here, I'm in Spain, and I have the right for the Social Security to help me with that. And then how lovely and how beautiful it is to help a mother become a mother. I'm no one in this process, in fact. But some people that work in fertility and the fertility world, they say, I got that woman pregnant. No, you didn't get that woman pregnant. Come on, you helped through technology. But there is this misconception in this field. And then there's also the economic advantages, of course, for those people working in the fertility field. And I do ask all of my students, do we really have the right to have a kid? Is it our right? And I force them into answering, no, it's not a right. We can't project that feeling of being realized by having a kid. It's just a gift. It's a gift that we get, and we are the participants in a life that is worth it. But we are not the only creators or the only beings that interact into that. And these are some recent data from Spain, from the assisted reproductive health 2023. And these data are now too low because there are more than 160,000 embryos transferred, but there were only 39,000 births. So it means that we have lost 100,000 embryos. So millions of embryos don't get to be born with dignity that has been exchanged by merch, but by becoming a product for market that asks for it. And this debate, this ethical debate, is explained by how we refuse to have a relational act, a sexual act that comes into place in that assisted reproduction. It's a micro-injection. I choose a bit of a sperm and I just put it into the woman and that's it. And there's just two gametes that fuse and become a DNA library. So we are not procreators anymore. The embryo specialist is the creator in a way. It comes to him or to her to perform that task. And I do know that ethics can't answer questions in a black or white matter. It's a space full of circumstances, of gray areas, but many things have been done wrong and many red lines have been crossed. Technology has evolved and we are performing more and more vitrification and cryogenization of the eggs, and the rate in Spain for pregnancies through transference, it's of 60%. So there is a line that hasn't been easy to reach. And the most limiting factor here is the age of those women, because that makes women that are older and over 40 look for donors. And yes, you look for a donor thinking that it's something that is done in a free will basis, but it is paid. Those people are paid for their gametes, for their sperm or the egg, or so that sperm that would never fertilize an egg is forced to fertilize another woman's egg because that man has been paid for it. And we are forcing sperm that otherwise would be infertile to become and to come to life through these techniques. And this is becoming matrix. This is becoming about who has the right to live. Machines that select and divide those gametes, those eggs, and they say, choose this embryo, this one. And the other ones, we get rid of them. Maybe they're type 4, type 3, type 2. We can get rid of them. We can just let them frozen again, and embryos are becoming something, a thing that is categorized in a different aspect as if it's viable or not, and that is the only thing that matters here. And we pay risk premiums in order to have embryos without any kind of diseases, for example. So it is sold to us that we are helping them to avoid those diseases, and that is a complete success, but that is not true. I have a video here that I would like to show you, but how we carry those biopsies, extracting a part of the embryo to try and diagnose if they have diseases or not. It's just, we are getting that embryo stripped from 20% of their being just to see if they are a candidate or not for transferring. What? And you see, those are all brothers there with the codes. They're named by codes, no brothers, sisters, siblings that were born from cold and from ice. Why is there still this cryogenic processes happening? Why are they still happening? Because they raise the quality of those embryos to be transferred. Is it really need? Is it a real need? No, I don't think so. And we have hundreds of thousands of embryos that are cryogized, and probably we will enter substituting this increasing by vitrification probably, but still, as Ondina said, every essay shows more and more clearly how the relative risk for the embryos produced by in vitro with microinjection have relative risks multiplied by 3 of being susceptible to cancer or other diseases, and every room of high risk complexities, like for example surrogacy, like for example high risk pregnancies that come all from this. And then we have the responsibility, the parental responsibility, something that Francisco well mentioned, where at this moment, as it happened with tobacco, for example, when kids that come from a bank, really, from a bank of donors, for example, and have been manipulated, maybe they will ask for this damage to be repaired. Maybe when they are older, they will come back and they will say, who was the responsible being for having me frozen and having me without a parent or without a mother? And in our clinic, we treat fertility, helping the couple to recognize their fertility and preserve it. We deepen in the process and the diagnosis of both, and we respect the sexual union and the embryos, of course. And this year we have had a total of 53% of pregnancies between couples that have asked about infertility last year. And I know that it's just our little contribution, but I am very proud of it because 10 years ago I started this project, and we need to be proud of our advances as well. And in conclusion, I would say that this is a crisis of hope. This demographic crisis is a crisis of hope. And when we recognize that life is a good, a greater good is when we understand that it must be transmitted. And we must understand that fecundity and fertility is coming from love, lived as a gift, not something that comes with technology, isolated technology. And the future becomes the future when we recognize the value of human lives. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias, Luis.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Luis. All of us here that were listening to your words, I must say, well, it's been a great speech, and I am focusing on innovations, for example, in my work, in my career, and I'm always supporting companies and, well, the environment of innovation in the technological market. And sometimes I do ask myself questions like this ones, like the ones you proposed. And sometimes I see the use of social media that we do and the artificial intelligence that we do. And sometimes you don't know if you're helping or not, if you should do things differently. And there are so many contradictions here. We want a better future, but we want to do it in an ethical way. We want to help in an ethical way. My parents, for example, they were farmers, and they have always cared for us with the biggest love and from the biggest defense of life in all of its manners and aspects. And I would like to offer the floor now to everyone, to maybe the audience, if they have any questions or comments. Luis, in the first place, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Chiva. It has been fantastic, and especially the presentations that I will ask for later, if I may, and which would be the ethical response for frozen embryos. Well, that is an incredible question, and from a pure ethical view, from a point of view, there's no correct answer. This was asked to the Pope, John Paul II, and there was no answer because it's a case-by-case basis to not create more indignity for the embryo. So we need to understand the desire of adopting an embryo, for example, even if you are not infertile, if you don't select, if you don't modify, if you just do it out of love, a classic adoption as it would be. But in the practice, we also choose and manipulate those embryos. So to just cut it short, in the Catholic Church, there is a debate where a part of the church thinks that there is a very similar situation here to the one that we have in a terminal patient in the intensive care unit. For example, we would have the option to let them die in dignity. But it is also true that in some circumstances and in some cases where not more indignity we could add, where we would avoid adding indignity in this sense, we could help a couple becoming parents. And I don't hate the idea of helping people to become parents if they have a special circumstance that doesn't allow them to do it in another way. But I am waiting for the society to ask for this technology to be avoided, honestly, and to be even forbidden.
Buenas tardes. Hay unos datos sobre de lo que nos ha hablado.
Good afternoon. There are some data that called my attention. The number, absurd in a way, of cesareans. And after my second child, my wife had a recommendation for a Chiva ligation. And in the rest of Spain, the cesarean section is not as common. And in private clinics, we have even a 40% of cesarean sections. And this is an aggression to women, in my opinion. And it's a factor that limits natality as well. And it limits births. I love the comment, but I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on it. Well, it's a subject that I am very interested in because our department has been specialized in cesarean sections as well. And we have done many, but definitely that rate of cesarean sections is a rate of quality in the world and needs to be kept under 20%. But we need to understand that it's not something that comes on demand. And some people try to force us to perform a C-section. And on the other side, we also have people who are afraid or fearful because gynecologists are the specialists that are in more demand in the world because of precisely that fear of not performing a C-section and having a bad outcome because of that. There are many legal matters that come into place as well, and there's a fear for that in our professional field. And the International Federation says that that rate has to be below 30%. And I think that acts as an indicator as well here. And back in 2016, when I was in La Paz, sometimes when we performed a second C-section, we recommended this tubal, as you said. And now we are facing the reality of 40% of C-sections that ended up poorly. And now we don't have these numbers anymore. We have seen that C-sections do help in some cases where the mother's life or the child's life are at risk. So we never should perform a C-section because I'm tired or because the woman is tired or because we are being asked for it, or AM, I want a C-section, you know? She's been there in relation for hours and hours, and you do think that she can actually give birth, but she wants a C-section, and this can become a problem. And in Spain, we see the quality of the departments in order as correlated to this rate in C-sections. So the higher the quality, the lower the C-section rate.
In the media, we hear sometimes very shocking messages which try to redefine our understanding of parenthood. And I wanted to ask scientists, is it really possible, or maybe will it be possible one day to create by technologies a human, a baby who has 3 parents or maybe has 2 mothers and no genetic father?
En realidad es algo en lo que se está trabajando. En realidad es algo en lo que se está investigando todo el tema.
It is something that we are working on. We are researching the synthetic embryos which are coming from embryonic cells, and in the clonings that have been done through the therapeutical clonings that have been done without allowing that embryo to develop, even knowing that they could develop. What they are trying to do is create embryos that come from 2 mothers without a father intervening. So this is something that it has been researched, and I'm sure that there are some results already out there. I don't have experience when it comes to this, and human species, we have not managed to create any embryos with genetic material from 2 women. I think Chinese have done it, and or they are very close. Yes, maybe they are, but it's a question that maybe could be even approached in Spain, because we have one of the most permissive laws and jurisdictions when it comes to reproductive assistance. Yes, but we know that they have been researching with genetic material that comes from animals as well. So sadly, anything that we can imagine now will become a reality in the near future, probably. It is possible, and maybe you're right, but I am not aware at the moment. Thank you very much. Thank you for this lovely interventions, and thank you to all of you panelists. And I wanted to talk to Luis in particular, because I do agree when it comes to this being a crisis of hope. And in your experience, I would like to know if even with the difficulties that we have in Spain and the worries with how difficult it is to find a home and a job and to establish ourselves, but however, our families, they don't have enough children or not children at all. So I would like to know more about this and about the essays that have been performed by CEU, talking about how also different faiths offer different data in terms of children, because sometimes when it comes to other religions, they are more prompt to have more children, and in a marriage, for example, they usually have more children than when a mom decides to become a mother alone. And in all of this, I would like to know more about how you see this hope crisis performing in the future. And we have heard it before. Only if we understand that life is hope, we will also be willing to transmit this to our children. And some of us here are coming from the political field, and we want to become a support for our families, and we want to help them with conviction and with hope as well. I don't know which is your experience in this sense, and if the desire of becoming a mother and a father is there, how can we help them? How can we help them understand that it's not about it becoming a right, but it is about it becoming something good. And together with Alejandro Macarron and our team, we wanted to know more about your opinion on this. Well, honestly, it's not my specialty, as you put it, but little groups of people doing little things in little places in the world can change the world. That is our approach. And so I would like you to understand that we need to be where we need to be, in the correct place at the right moment. We have the IIRM, International Institute of Restorative Medicine, and we have been stopped by the tsunami of the 68 with women's freedom and all of that, because my daughters say, I have been fooled. They sold me this idea of freedom, and now I'm not free to do what I would like, which is to have a family and to become a mother. And we need to talk about all the risks that there are out there if we have an active sexual life. Yes, but we also need to talk about what happens when it becomes too late. What happens if we leave it for later and later and later? And in politics, we need to be brave. We need to be bold. We have Mónica Lavín here, who has a proposal as well for maternity in Madrid, which I find absolutely incredible. And this proposal, because politics need to be exemplary as well. That is how I feel about it, and help our teenagers to understand what it means to become a family and to become a mother or a father, and support them and show them the beauty in it. And then you can create and continue with your career. But we need to become fathers or mothers first, because we are losing our chance. And that is something that we need to convey to society as well. Thank you very much. It has been a great debate. Roger, Ondina, Luis, thank you so much. It has been a lovely opportunity, and now we will have a brief break for coffee. But first of all, I would like to just jump to conclusions and say that Uju said that there's this idea of parent number one, parent number two, and Ondina said that there is this more than 1 million of embryos that are frozen in this market that we have waiting there for mothers to come to be. And also Luis was talking about this market for donors. There is a mercantilization. There is this turning everything into a marketed product, and to try and change that culture in society, to try and change things from ground, and for our kids to become part of our families through love, is something that we need to support as a whole, as a community, and try to understand that love is what matters most when bringing kids to this world. And I want to end as I began: little people doing little things in little places can change the world. And we started with if you want to change the world, go to your house and go home and just call your family to help you. Yes, this is the whole idea that I want to leave you with. Thank you so much.